If you want to build wealth like the top 1%, you need to stop confusing tax strategy from wealth strategy. Because right now, there's an entire internet economy on selling you the idea that if you just structure things correctly, you'll reduce your taxes so much that you build wealth. There's tax hacks, entity structures, write-offs, but most of that doesn't create wealth. It creates complexity before value, and in a lot of cases puts you in tax positions you don't fully understand that don't benefit you. Because what wealthy people have and what they did to get it are completely different things. And when you copy the structure without understanding the economics or the law, you don't just slow down your growth, you increase your audit exposure and your downside. And I'm Jasmine DiLucci. I'm a practicing tax attorney, CPA, and enrolled agent. I got my first tax license in high school, and now I work with business owners at all stages of growth. Okay, I see what actually creates wealth, and I also see what creates tax problems, especially when people take tax positions that they can't understand or defend. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the first mistake that keeps people stuck, why knowing your numbers protects both your money and your tax position, and the real order the top 1% follow to actually build wealth. The biggest mistake people make is trying to optimize taxes before they have built something worth optimizing. They focus on deductions, entity structures, and reducing taxable income before they've created meaningful economic profit. But tax only applies to income that exists, okay? If you don't have strong underlying economics, there's nothing to optimize. You are just reducing the base you could have compounded. And a lot of cases, people are not just reducing taxes, they are increasing costs. They are paying for legal structures, compliance, bookkeeping, and advisory fees that don't guarantee a return. And from a tax perspective, they are also creating tax positions that may seem like they are technically allowed, but in reality are either outright illegal, lack economic substance, or even if they're legal, provide no meaningful economic benefit. And that matters because tax law is built around substance over form. Okay, if a transaction does not have real economic purpose beyond tax reduction, it becomes much harder, if not impossible, to defend in an IRS audit. Okay, and then all you've done is reduce cash, divert your focus, and increase your exposure. The second thing that the top 1% do differently is they know their numbers. Okay, they don't wait until year end to find out what happened. They operate off of real-time data. They understand revenue, margins, cost structure, and cash flow. They track KPIs like customer acquisition cost and lifetime value because those numbers determine how aggressively they should reinvest. Your numbers, when understood, are decision-making tools for growing your profit. Okay, if your customer acquisition cost is low and your lifetime value is high, you should be pushing capital back into growth as fast as possible, not throwing it into some random low ROI tax hacks or strategies. If your margins are thin, you don't have a tax problem, okay? You have an economics problem. And if your cash flow is inconsistent, pulling money out to save on taxes is one of the fastest ways to slow down the growth of your business. This is how the top 1% think, okay? They use numbers to decide where the money goes, not just report what has already happened, and this is where I see people get it wrong in real time. I had a new client making about $75,000 in net income. Okay, the business owner already didn't have enough time to run the business, okay? He needed to hire more team members. But instead of focusing on growing the business, his CPA told him to double his tax compliance and elect S-Corp status. And now he had an additional business tax return, additional payroll filings, additional administrative work. And for what? No tax savings, because at that income level, especially in a state like California, reasonable compensation is going to be at or near that $75,000 anyways. So now he's spending thousands of dollars on compliance, thinking he's saving thousands of dollars when in reality, there's no meaningful tax benefit and a lot more complexity, okay? And the part that really matters is what didn't happen. That same time and money could have gone into hiring, improving operations, or generating more revenue, which means instead of increasing profit, he slowed it down to optimize something that didn't actually need optimizing yet. That is what it looks like when you do not actually understand the tax positions you are taking and are looking at the world through a narrow tax strategy lens instead of an overall wealth and economic strategy. You make decisions that actually hurt your overall wealth and economics. Okay, the whole point of tax strategy is to save money. Okay, and sometimes focusing only on tax strategy can cost you more than you save. Now, from a tax standpoint, knowing your numbers also creates something just as important: documentation. Okay, you have clean books, transactions are categorized correctly, receipts are attached, right? There is a clear audit trail. Because if the IRS questions a deduction, the burden of proof is on you, the taxpayer, not your CPA, not your bookkeeper, you. And if you cannot substantiate the deduction, the expense, or the position with a receipt, it gets disallowed. There's a Supreme Court case, United States versus Boyle, that makes it very clear that you as the business owner have what we call non-delegable duties. You can hire professionals, but you cannot outsource accountability for everything. Think about your business like a child, You can hire a nanny, but if that nanny is not feeding your child every day, the law does not allow you to say, "What? I delegated it." It is still your child, It is still your responsibility, and the same is true here. Even when you hire help, legally, you are expected to understand your tax positions and keep the required support for the IRS. And I see this play out in real cases all the time, For example, in Juggled v. Commissioner, a 2023 pretty recent tax court case, the taxpayers paid $50,000 for a 183-page tax plan that told them to create all of these entities and restructure their business. On paper, everything looked really sophisticated, But when the IRS looked at it, they looked at the substance, which sucked, There wasn't a real business purpose behind what they had created, and the taxpayers couldn't substantiate the positions the way that the plan assumed they could with a ton of legal disclaimers. So the IRS collapsed the entire structure, Deductions were disallowed, positions were reversed, and the penalties were assessed. The taxpayer thought that showing the tax plan would support their position, but in fact, it supported the fact that they did it solely for tax purposes. The IRS and tax court do not care who recommended it. They care whether it's correct because they hold you responsible for you. And this is the part people miss. You can have a complex structure. You can have advisors. You can have a detailed plan. But if you don't understand your numbers and you can't support what actually happened, none of it holds, Because tax strategy only works when it's supported by real economics and real documentation. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good it looks on paper, it gets unwound. Now, let's talk about the actual order, because this is where some big mistakes are made. Real wealth is built in a sequence that aligns both economically and from a tax standpoint. First, build a high income producing asset, Usually a business where you have a real advantage. And when I look at my wealthiest clients, this is very consistent. They are not building 10 income streams. They're not copying something their friend said that they don't understand. They're people who learned a skill and focus on deploying that skill in one business. They want optimization, but not at the cost of all of their time and attention. And they don't let a CPA or worse, a tax strategist with a narrow tax focus drive their economic decisions. Second, they reinvest into that asset aggressively because that is where your highest return on capital exists. At this stage, the opportunity cost of pulling your money out for tax optimization is extremely high because you're diverting capital away from your highest return environment. And this is also the point where tax strategy starts to matter, but in a very specific way. You're not restructuring everything. You're not overcomplicating it. You're looking at low lift, high impact decisions inside your business that improve your tax outcome as you scale without interrupting growth, because the priority is still the same. Maximize the economics first, and this is where people get it completely backwards. They look at the cost of paying the IRS, and they think that's the problem, but they don't look at the cost of pulling money and time away from the thing that actually makes them money. It's like refusing to use a merchant service company because you don't want to pay a percentage. On paper, it feels like you're saving money by doing that, but if that decision limits your ability to generate revenue, you are actually worse off. And the same thing happens with tax. If trying to save on taxes reduces your ability to grow your business, you are not optimizing. You are decreasing your overall wealth. Third, once you have excess capital that you cannot deploy at high return inside your business, then you move it into assets with more stable returns that come with a tax advantage. And this is important, Those assets need to be true passive involvement so you don't strip your time and attention away from your primary business that reduces your ROI. That's where things like real estate come in, And this is the stage where tax strategy outside of your business starts to become more relevant because now you have both income and assets to optimize. And most people invert this, They look at tax strategy the minute they start paying tax when they should be looking at overall economics and wealth as the primary driver. So if there's one thing to take away from this, it's this, Wealth is built through economics first and optimized through tax strategy second. You generate income, you reinvest into high return opportunities, you allocate excess capital, and then you apply tax strategy to improve efficiency, not the other way around. Because tax strategy can improve outcomes, but it cannot replace the underlying economics that create them. Focus on the one thing that actually makes you money, reinvest into it, do not gamble it away on strategies that you do not understand. The people who win long-term are not chasing tax hacks, okay? They are building real value in the right order. And if you want more no BS advice on real tax law and real tax strategy so you can stop chasing bad tax advice online, then subscribe.